So this is probably one of the best parts within the process of editing your movie. You're basically finished, and now you're ready to share it with the world by exporting it out of Premiere. Now, before you do that though, I recommend you render your movie so that you've got this solid green color from the very left to the far right of the entire sequence. Now, why do I recommend that? Because you should watch your movie in its rendered state. You should watch it up here in the program window so you can catch any mistakes and make any changes prior to taking the time to export it out. And then of course, prior to when your customer gets this, because you certainly don't want your customer to see something that you should have caught way back here at this stage. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, Frank, doesn't Premiere automatically render upon export? It does, but that doesn't mean you watched it. So you need to watch it. That's my strong recommendation. And the best way to watch it is to make sure it's rendered, because some of your edit systems may not be strong enough to play back some of your multi-layer effects that you've created within your sequence. And if you've got all kinds of different colors up here, red, yellow, green, gray, blue, whatever the colors might be, some of your CPUs will stutter or pause, but then you won't be able to watch your movie. So render. Okay, with that said, your movie's finished, you're ready to go. Now you want to export it out and get it to a website or put it on YouTube or get it to your client. So you click on the sequence that you want to export out, and you'll see this blue line all the way around, just where my cursor is now. It's all the way around that particular sequence. And then you navigate up to the word File here at the top menu, and then navigate down to Export Media. And there are a lot of options here. Now, I would leave this output alone, leave scale to fit alone. I'll come back to that in just a moment, if you're working with DVDs, that is. But as you can see here, I have a preview of my sequence. Down below is a playhead that I can move from left to right. I could drag it to the very beginning, or I can drag it to the far right to the end. And notice that I've got in marker, like I can mouse click and drag that, and an out marker, which is really cool because then I could set a range if I wanted to export just a portion of my movie out, which is really cool. And then down here, I have the ability to select entire sequence, sequence into out. That's really up to you what you would like to do. I would leave it though. Make sure that these little markers are at the very beginning and the very end of this range here, because this blue bar represents your entire movie. And there's nothing wrong with mouse clicking on this playhead and scrubbing through to make sure that it's all there. Now, over here to the far right, man, there are a lot of options, and let's see if we can get through these quickly. If you want to simply make what I'm going to call a self-contained, high-quality master video of your movie, you click on this little guy right here. Click on that. You'll make a video clip that matches the sequence settings. So whatever your sequence settings are set to, you'll make a master, high-quality, high-resolution file based on those settings. And most of these items are all locked, with the exception of these guys down here. And if you park your cursor over any one of these, it'll explain what that is in that little gray box that pops up. I don't think you need to check any of those. But if you do check this, that's if you want to make a finished master file that sits outside of Premiere, which is not a bad idea, to have a finished high-res, high-quality, self-contained movie that exists outside of Premiere, because that could be your archive version of your movie. And then, of course, if that's what you want to do, you could navigate down to Export and immediately export it out. But we don't want to do that yet because I want to show you more. So I'm going to go back up here. I'm going to uncheck that and turn that off, because you've got a lot of other options over here. You could go to Format, click on this, and well, you'll see here I could select just AIFF for audio, or AAC for just audio, DNX HD, which is an AVID codec, or H.264. Which is real popular for websites. And as a matter of fact, I'll click on H.264, and anytime you change this above, or anytime you change this item here at the top, you'll notice all these items down here will also change. So keep that in mind. Now I'm going to go back up here, and I'm going to select QuickTime, which is right there. And of course, based on what you may have installed, after you've selected this, let's not worry about this quite yet, but after you've selected the format, I'll come back to these items here in the middle. I could go down to the Video tab. Under Video Codec, click on this down arrow and get all kinds of options here. Look at this. I mean, there are so many here. I think a lot of these options are going to be different for some of our computers. So some of you may not have Apple ProRes. I happen to have Apple ProRes because I have other applications installed on my computer that also installed that option. So keep that in mind, because some of you may not have certain things that I have, and you'll see on your list, based on what you've installed, what your choices are. So I'm going to go back to H.264 there. And as you progress down this work path, I'll call it the path, from top to bottom, there are many options you can select. So in other words, you can go down to quality, mouse click on the slider, increase or decrease the quality. You could change the resolution if you want, which I don't think you should, but you could. You could select frame rate, 2997 or 30 or whatever you'd like. Now, I'd be careful with that one because this isn't a true converter or a true telecine process. So be very careful. I would match your sequence and do your conversion, your frame rate conversion outside of Premiere. Use something else. But you want to match the frame rate of your sequence, basically. And then, of course, you can select progressive here. If you know your sequence was shot, or if your clips are all progressive or mostly progressive, then you can select that here. I'd leave it on square pixels. You could change the keyframe. I typically change that to at least 30, every 30 frames. And then this is really cool because I can change the data. I can change the data rate, and this will affect my file size, which is really cool because if you have a client that says, no, we need a file that's 25 to 30 megabytes, well, you could just mess with this number here. And based on what I'm seeing here, if I just type in, let's say 5,000, I should get within my target range, and there it is. And it comes pretty close when you've done that. It comes really, really close. Now, that's after you've gone through all the items for video. Don't forget, you still have to work with audio. So you click on the audio tab and you basically go through the same process. You can select from different audio codecs here. You can go with stereo or mono. The sample rate, 48 is really good. It's the highest you can go in that particular option. And you can go with a different bit rate, which you can increase up to 320, which would increase it as well. After you've gone through this, you'll see, of course, that same reference number is there that is both video and audio. Okay, it's not just for the audio, it's both. In fact, if I click back over on video, you'll see it's the exact same number. So this number represents both video and audio combined, at least in this particular case for H.264. Now, let's talk about a different codec. I'm going to go back up here to the format. Like I mentioned, I'm going to click on Mpeg-2 Dvd. Not Mpeg-2, not for Blu-ray, or Mpeg-4, which is, these are all handy, but Mpeg-2 Dvd. And I know that a lot of you are still doing DVDs, including myself. Now, I don't do a lot of them, but I still am doing some DVDs. Now, I wanted to come to this particular one because I wanted to say that, first of all, this does not actually burn a DVD. This simply makes the audio and the video file that you'll need to take into a DVD authoring software. It could be anything, maybe DVD Studio Pro or something like that that you still may have. But it basically makes just the video and the audio file, okay? I'm bringing this up because a lot of these items you may want to go through and change. So I haven't talked about this yet, but the output name is always going to be here for any of the options. And when you click on that output name, you can then change the name up here and select the location. And that's for any of the options that you click. In fact, I'm going to hit cancel. That's for any of the options that you change up here. Now, of course, you want both video and audio, or sometimes you may not want audio, and there might be some rare occasions where you don't want video. But there are a couple things going on here that I have to bring up when it comes to DVD. Now, don't forget, you want to click on the video tab to work on the video parts, and of course, the audio tab to work on the audio parts. But basically, don't forget, DVD video straight up is still standard definition. And so the quality is obviously not going to be as good as your high def project will be, but that's okay. We all know what DVDs are, and that's just to be expected. But you can adjust certain things like quality. You can slide it from left to right. You can't change the resolution. It's absolutely locked for the DVD specification. And you really shouldn't be messing with the frame rate either. I would leave all of these alone if you can. The only thing that worries me about DVDs these days is some folks may not have a flat screen. And progressive isn't going to look very good on anything but a flat screen TV, right, or an LCD screen or a computer screen. If they have the old glass TV tubes, back in the day, and I know a lot of people do, I actually still have one in my garage that we watch because there's a VHS player connected to it and a DVD player connected to it. You'll want to select upper or lower for interlaced. Because if it's stuck, or if you leave, I shouldn't say stuck, if you leave it on progressive and they play this DVD back on a regular DVD player that's hooked up to an old-fashioned glass TV, I say glass because it's those old tube TVs, a progressive DVD is just not going to look good. It looks horrible, actually. They won't be able to watch it. So you've got to be careful. I would test this DVD once it's done, just to make sure before you before you give this to your client. Now, the other items, this is all kind of like a force that you have to kind of go through. You want to check widescreen. And when you select widescreen, did you see what happened over here in the preview area? So this is also a problem here too, because look, this doesn't really quite fit. These are black bars that would show up on the TV set. If you're watching this, you'll see those. So to get rid of that, you have to go back up here to source scaling. Click on this and select scale to fill. And when you do that, it scales it just a little bit. I want to say 2, maybe 3%. You'll lose a little bit from the top and a little bit from the bottom, but it works. You have to do that. Now, as you move on down below, you can go with VBR, CBR. I happen to like CBR better than VBR, variable bitrate. I like constant bitrate. And I like constant bitrate. Here's just a little tip, because constant bitrate, when you're fading up from black or fading down to black, you don't get all the mumbly jumbly stuff that shows up because it's VBR, variable bitrate will show you that. When you go with CBR, it's far less. It's a consistent fade between transitions and coming from black and going to black for whatever reason within your movie. So that's one of the reasons why I like CBR. No matter what you select here, you'll get choices for bitrate quality. So I don't ever go above 7.5. I try to stay right there or near 7.5. I don't ever change these. And then again, you'll see the estimated file size for your movie down here, which this will fit no problem on a standard blank DVD. Now over here on the audio side, you can click on that. You can make changes here as well. You've got some really cool choices there. I wouldn't worry about multiplexer or captions or publish. These are the two that you want to be concerned about, just to get this out the door and to get it to the next step for DVD, which would be to author this in a DVD authoring software. And then of course you would select export. Now I'm going to go back up here. I'm going to mouse click on this. I'm going to select QuickTime, and I'm going to go back to the H.264. So let's say you've gone through all these options. You've selected output name, you've clicked on this, you've given it a name. Don't forget you can select the location here. You want both video and audio. These are self-explanatory. Here's the summary. You've gone through all these options and you're ready to export out. I'm going to select export now to do that. So I'll select export, and it's pretty straightforward. I get this progression bar here that tells me what the status is, which is really cool. And I can walk away and do whatever I want and come back and it's done. And hopefully it looks good, and I can move on with my additional projects or whatever steps beyond this. So I'm going to hit cancel here because there isn't a whole lot to look at. But once this portion is done, then you go look for that particular file and you move on with that file to the next step. Now that's about it for the basic export options. In my next lesson, I'm going to talk about the Q portion down here, which is really will bring me into a subset of media encoder. So we're done with this lesson for now. We've covered a lot of ground. In my next lesson, I'm going to talk about when I select this Q option within this same movie, what those options will be if you select Q, which is what I'm going to call kind of a batch processing capability.